Welcome to your doom. Someone in the comments yesterday said, I wish Tom was as funny as he thinks he is. And to you, I say, yeah, same. Here is some wrestling news. An ex-employee says WWE may be selling the company. Also, AEW could potentially be working with another American wrestling promotion. And Impact Wrestling brings back a classic championship. More on that in a little bit. There's been a lot of discussion regarding the mental state of one Vincent Kennedy McMahon over the last couple of weeks. A few messages have been bandied around from sources saying that he is in well and truly a flip it mode, but we're not using flip, we're using the swear word version of that. And that continues a little bit today. Dutch Mantel, who you may remember as Zeb Coulter, Uncle Zebekiah, for long-term fans of WWF and the wrestling in general, put out a tweet yesterday, which has certainly started a couple of conversations. The tweet goes, huge news. Any truth to this? Overheard directly out of WWE Stamford is that a deal is being negotiated to sell WWE and the network to ESPN and Fox as early as mid-May. Now, take this with the largest pinch of salt you can possibly find, okay? This is from Dutch Mantel's Twitter. Big old pinch of salt. Maybe take 2 bits just in case you drop the first bit. I mean, the possibility is certainly there. It's not uncommon, the idea of WWE wanting to sell up the entire company, especially during this really uncertain times. You've had moments like this where companies have been sold as a way of sort of getting out of the business altogether. I can't imagine Vince McMahon getting out of the business of wrestling, though, which is the strangest part of this whole thing when it comes together. ESPN and Fox are both owned by Disney. Aiden, our news hound, adds a little bit more to this. So to kind of give this some levity, any purchase that big would have to go through Disney, since it would be a multi-billion-dollar deal more than likely. So Disney would have to get the tick on that one if this was a thing that was going to go down. We don't know if it's going to be a thing that's going to go down, but it's certainly something for conversation. It does add to a lot about what's been going on at the moment regarding Vince McMahon, i.e. this, at the moment, the general consensus is he's in a foul mood most of the time and he just doesn't care. Like, this is a really tough time for businesses all around the world, and it's even a tough time for WWE, to be perfectly honest. And WrestleVotes tweeted this out, which may or may not be connected to the story, but I'm adding it into here anyway. WrestleVotes say, hearing from a few different sources, that WWE is willing to grant a release to, quote, just about anyone who requests one. Basically, if a talent wants out, they can go. Will be interesting to see if anyone really does want out, especially during this uncertain time. When they say anyone, could we see Roman Reigns leaving WWE? I don't think that'll be a thing that happens. But add that into the current speculation around the status of WWE and paint an interesting picture. Of course, when we know more, if there is no more to know on this, you will know about it first of all. But just a recap of that tweet from Dutch Mantel. Says, huge news. Is there any truth to this? Overheard directly out of WWE Stamford is that a deal is being negotiated to sell WWE and the network to ESPN and Fox by as early as mid-May. Salt Bay. Pinch of salt. Over to AEW now. Quite a lot being spoken about AEW. In particular, last night's episode of Dark, when a relative nobody kicked out of the V-Trigger. I know. It's another story for another time, that. A bigger picture with All Elite Wrestling is that they could potentially be starting working with Ring of Honor. Marty Scurll brought this up on the inaugural episode of the ROH Strong podcast. And Marty said both parties, regarding ROH and themselves, are definitely willing to work with each other. It's just a matter of timing, I guess. I'm not saying anything will. I'm just saying I wouldn't rule it out. There's no reason why we wouldn't. It's just the timing needs to be correct, and it needs to be a fitting situation for us to work together. I personally would like to see it happen at some point. Now, any other time with any other company, you kind of go, all right, whatever, just get Salt Bay back in here for a pinch of salt. But because Marty Scurll has got this wonderful relationship with the Young Bucks and the Elite, it makes a deal like this a little bit more possible. I mean, obviously there was a lot of talk that Marty was going to go to AEW at the end of his time with Ring of Honor. He ends up staying and becoming the booker and being offered a ridiculous amount of money to do so. So a partnership with Ring of Honor and AEW would be an amazing turn of events. We've actually seen, right, the end of last year, there was some tough PR around for Ring of Honor for multiple reasons, which we've talked about on the podcast, on the news podcast on the morning, and on these videos as well. But there's been a lot of good being said about Ring of Honor as of late, in the sense that they are paying all the wrestlers and staff that were down to work shows that have been cancelled. Everybody's been paid by Ring of Honor, which I think is a real class move. And the idea of them working together with AEW would certainly be a boon to them. Would it be a boon to AEW though? Well, I don't know if it works too much the other way. But it would certainly be a great thing for Ring of Honor. To quote Stu Bennett, "I'm afraid I've got some tough stories." That was the line, wasn't it? Yeah. Some bad news all clubbed together for WWE. Their Madison Square Garden show has been postponed once again. This was the show that was meant to go down back in March. It was moved to the end of June. That now isn't happening. MSG is very much shuttered for the time being. And we don't know when that show will happen and what the situation is with it. I imagine now, probably end of the year. If they're not doing it in June, they'll probably look to do it end of the year, if they do it at all this year. Also, WWE has postponed its tour of Australia and New Zealand. These were meant to go down over in June, but now that isn't happening either. This comes from TEG Dainty, the global entertainment company and promoter for live events in Australia and New Zealand. They say that the events have been postponed. They're currently looking to secure some new dates for an upcoming tour. So they'll get there eventually. It's one of those where I think it might be last week even, where WWE said they were keen to get sort of the motor running on live events as soon as the end of June. And I think a lot of things have sort of putting the stoppers in place for them now. I imagine this would have been a decision made by Australia and New Zealand rather than WWE. And on the TV front, new ratings low for Monday Night Raw. This is a tough time at the moment. A new non-holiday low for Monday, 1.82 million viewers, which is down from 1.84 last week. It's only back a bit, but it's back. That's the thing. They are fast approaching the all-time record low, which is 1.78, which was Christmas Eve of 2018. Now, the troubling bit about this number is that they were getting to a stage where the third hour was kind of holding in WWE. You used to get these big third hour dips, but now it was recently at a point where it was starting to hold, but it looks like that third hour dip is back again as the contract signing with Seth Rollins and Drew McIntyre and the US title match with Andrade and Apollo Crews did 1.62 million, which is the lowest number for an hour in 25 years. And it's annoying because the best thing on Raw this past week, in my opinion, was the contract signing. That was the highlight of the night. And also the title match between Andrade and Apollo Crews. That was great too. And both of them did the lowest numbers. It's a shame. It's tough. I feel for Drew McIntyre. These numbers, I feel like they're going to be used in promos for years to come. Like he's going to be compared to Diesel for no fault of his own as like a low-performing champion. For no fault of his own, may I add. Let's end on a brighter note. Impact Wrestling genuinely brought a smile to my face last night. So how do you solve a problem like your champ not being there? Tessa Blanchard isn't going to be part of Impact, in the ring at least, for another 11 weeks or so, as a result of a big block of tapings that Tessa couldn't attend as a result of the pandemic. So Rebellion, their 2-week pay-per-view, so big, it took 2 weeks. The main event was set to be Tessa Blanchard versus Michael Elgin versus Eddie Edwards. Eddie Edwards couldn't make it, nor could Tessa Blanchard. So you haven't got a world champion. So they fixed it. And wow, what a way to fix it. Elgin comes out at the end of Rebellion, says, "Just declare me the champion." Here comes Moose. Now, Moose has been doing this shtick on Impact Wrestling, where he's claiming to be the best TNA wrestler of all time. He's been beating TNA legends left, right, and centre. It was something that was going to really sort of shine during the TNA There's No Place Like Home events during WrestleMania week, but we know that didn't happen. But he's continued on, and he comes out on the show wearing the TNA World Heavyweight Championship belt. The belt that has been retired for a long time now. And he ends up facing not just Michael Elgin, but a returning TNA original, if you will, in Hernandez. So that's your main event for Rebellion. Moose wins, and Moose declares himself the TNA World Heavyweight Champion. And that is, I guess, how you're going to solve the problem of not having a champion. You're going to kind of make the main belt be the TNA title for a bit in storyline world. I'm not against this at all. I have a funny feeling, and I've got no evidence to back this up. I have a feeling this is where they were going to be going with Moose anyway. Like, they were going to give him an old TNA championship belt. I thought it might have been maybe the Legends belt, or the Global belt, or the King of the Mountain championship, or the Knockouts Tag Team championships. But I imagine they were going to give him a belt like this anyway, but they've just kind of gone, well, Tessa's not here. We've got Moose, we've got a belt. Let's just merge them together for the sake of 11 weeks of rather peculiar TV. I'm fascinated to see where this goes with Moose as the TNA World Heavyweight Champion. Why not? The world's upside down at the moment. Let that happen. Rebellion was really good, by the way. It was a very, very good show from Impact Wrestling. Lovely, lovely stuff. That'll do it for your news for today. On the podcast feed later on, I'm going to give this a little plug. We talked a bit about Ring of Honor earlier on. The Beer City Bruiser from Ring of Honor is my guest on Desert Island Graps. Brand new episode of that on the podcast. Every single Wednesday, I get on a wrestler or somebody from the wrestling world, and I ask them what 3 wrestling matches they would take on a desert island. You may have seen some on the YouTube channel with some of the lads from Cultaholic, but we do them as an audio podcast, and they're available every Wednesday. We've done something like 33 episodes so far. And I'd love it if you took time to check it out. We always get some really fun people on there. Do take a listen. It'll be on the podcast feed a little bit later on today. And as for you, what? All right, you want to come up? Okay, you want to come up and say goodbye. All right, say goodbye then. Say goodbye. You can't say that on YouTube. We'll get demonetized. Stay safe. Love you. Bye.